Welcome to Clement's Family Farm. So I got a special one for you today. The Chevelle's going away. I'm happy and I'm sad about it. The Chevelle doesn't belong to me. So we have a friend that has a daughter in the military. I was watching on Facebook, they were trying to move this car from San Diego up here to where we live safely. And she's gonna have to store it and all this other thing. But I also was reading the post about the car doesn't run. And the reason why she had to get it up here was her daughter, this was her daughter's car. She was getting deployed. She's in the Navy and getting deployed. So she was getting rid of all of her stuff down there because she was gonna be gone for a long time. So they released the apartment where she was living, and she was trying to find a place because this was her car, this was her daily driver for a while, but it wasn't running. So she needed to get it up here to where we were. I saw that she was having some troubles. Well, I messaged her because I do like classic cars. I have a 66 Nova myself. There'll be more on that coming up. Yeah, I love classic cars and I love Chevys. And I thought, you know what? Well, let me call her up and see if I can help out with the situation. So I called her, she told me what the issues were, and then I felt really bad because here's a young girl down in San Diego trying to get her car fixed, and none of these mechanics were helping her. So the car didn't run. And she paid a lot of money to these guys to get this thing running, and it still wasn't running. And correctly, there were some wiring issues, and I'm going to tell you, in a 71 Chevelle, the wiring in these things is super simple. So I don't understand why they were taking advantage of her and all this other stuff. But anyway, we came to an agreement. I felt it in my heart that I have some skills on these old classic cars that I can apply to it. So I told her, I said, you get the car to me, and since she's deployed in the Navy, I'll do all my labor for free. You pay for the parts that needed, and I'll do all the labor for free. And you could store it on my property. Because they lived in town, I live out here in God's country, away from everybody, and I could store things here. So I thought, here's a perfect opportunity. Come here, I can work on it. She's gonna be gone for a while, so I can work on it on my free time and do something good for her. So while she was in the Navy, I had it here and I did the wiring on it. I went through it and I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I fixed a bunch of stuff that hadn't operated on her since she owned it. She drove it for about 7, 8 years. And I can't believe some of the stuff she drove it without even working. And these guys could have just plugged in one wire. So I hate it when people get taken advantage of. I hate it when women get taken advantage of, especially on something like this. So I felt good about doing it. And that's what I encourage all you car guys. If you do have a skill, help somebody out if they need it. I know my friends and stuff, we used to always help each other out, not asking one dime. I still do that today. Yeah, I was like, great. Here I'm getting a Chevelle in my yard. I get to work on something, and it was a privilege. So one of my agreements was make sure she kept up the insurance and the registration on it. That way I could test drive it and keep it here and keep everything up and running while she's gone. One deployment led to another, and life changes and everything. It was great because once I got it fixed, I was taking my daughter to school in it, which is just down the road about a mile, and this is all rural area, so I wasn't driving it on the highway or anything like that. But it worked out good for me. I was happy to help her out. But one of the things along with this was the whole front end. It still had the stock front end on it, and the bushings were so shot. It was actually wallering out the holes in the A-arms. It was incredible what I was seeing. I recommended her to her since I had it, I'm not an alignment person, but I can change out parts. And I said, listen, I'm a shopper. I'll find these parts for you and we'll get this front end fixed. She said, okay. I gave her kind of a price list and she saved up. It was gonna cost her probably, maybe right around $3,800 to get this whole front end replaced with parts and everything. So she saved up and told me when she was ready to do it. I did some shopping and I got all performance parts, shocks, everything for this car for under $1,000. And I shopped around, got it from a few different places, and it was incredible. So, like I said, I didn't do a wheel alignment. That's the only thing that is left to do on this. And then the car is safe to drive again. I was really pleased. I got some really good parts for this thing and got them in there. I tried to align everything up to what the factor or what it was when I pulled out the old stuff, but that old stuff was so jacked up. When I put everything back, the new parts in, the alignment's just all crazy. So I tried to make some adjustments as much as I know how. I'm not good with all those angles and stuff because I'm not real familiar with it. I know just a little bit to kind of get these things straight and get them lined up so it's not a danger. But we're gonna tow this thing into town, get the wheel alignment done. She's gonna take it back with her. So she's gonna come out and take a look at it today. And I'm gonna tell you, I've had the car here 4 years now. And I'm happy to have had it here, stored it for her, and do the work on it. Because this is a nice car. It does need some work. It's not perfect. It's a great car to get in and go do a car cruise or something like with it now, because it does start up and run. The previous owner had a kind of a race motor, a high performance motor in there. I don't know what those parts are, but the car does get up and go pretty good. So I just want to encourage people, do something nice, especially if you got a skill. There's a lot more women with classic cars now. I'm seeing on social media. It's great. I like to see everybody driving these classic cars. What I'll do now is I'll open up the hood. On the inside here, she had paid for new spark plug wires and everything, and the mechanics put in the wrong spark plug wires. Like I said, this is a high performance motor. There's some headers on it and stuff, so you can't use normal spark plug wires on it. You have to go with the porcelain style because of the way the headers are and the heat transfer. So all those wires, brand new wires that she had on there, were starting to burn already, and there probably wasn't even any miles on it. They were just running it in the shop. So anyway, I put the correct spark plug wires on there, which is the porcelain, and they won't have any of that heat issue, especially with all this aftermarket stuff. You got to make adjustments with the aftermarket stuff. The coil was bad. It didn't have enough power to run what was here. New cap rotor, but all new wiring. I took all the wiring from the firewall and replaced it from there. Let's see, all the way around into the engine compartment. And then these things here, they didn't have this hooked up. I don't know why, but I replaced all the wiring there to the coil. They only had one wire on the coil. They didn't have the startup wire. Some of this older stuff, you gotta have 2 wires on it. When it's running, it's gotta have less than, I think, 6.5 volts to the coil. But when on startup, you've gotta have 12 volts to it. So that's the 2 wires I fixed. And then you got the resistor there, and then there was some sort of old electronic controller on there. I got rid of that. Did I? No, I just put new wires to it and hooked it up and got some new grounding. So I grounded everything really good. That's one of the big issues. And then I put wire looms in. And the other thing that was wrong with this car was being raced, so there was some race gas in here, and it had eaten up some of the hoses and fuel pump, so I replaced all that. And then what I did is, typical of Chevys, they get a hot start and there's the on the starter, and sometimes those coils don't work all that good. I always put in an extra coil, so you can jump start it from here if you need to be, but I always put these coils in. It makes it so much easier to work on and deal with. So I put in new grounding wires all the way through, and then what I did was, the alternator was having issues because it had the old regulator system in it. I put a single wire, high amperage alternator on it just to eliminate some of the confusion and get rid of that old regulator system, because that was all jacked up too. I put one of these are solenoid controlled battery tenders. So if your battery ever gets below, I think, 11.5 volts, this thing senses it and kicks the battery off completely, and all you got to do is reset it, and then you can start your vehicle. So there is a light on the inside. Sometimes that light comes on, and it comes on automatically. And she was coming out to her car and the battery was dead, and so forth. Well, with this system here, it has a key fob, and you can hit that. So every time I run this car and I'm parking it, I always hit the key fob, which kills the battery. So there's no juice going to any components here while the car is sitting. When I get in it to go to start it, I hit the key fob again. This thing triggers, fires up the battery again. Everything's energized. It's a fresh battery every time. I put that in along with the fuse and a relay switch. Yeah, and then new wires. So the key thing on some of these older vehicles is the wiring. I always tell people, check your wiring, check your wiring. Even if it looks good on the outside, some of the corrosion, it travels inside the sheath of these cables and you can't see it, and will actually cause your battery to be very, very weak. So I replaced all those. I also put in a new fuel regulator and distribution unit on this carburetor, and some new fuel lines. This is what I did on my 66, and this works out really good. Edelbrock, or actually that's a Summit Racing unit. Fairly easy to install, cheap, and a little extra security. Yeah, and the other thing I do is all the, let's see if you can see that. So all the wires that I took out of here that didn't go to anything because there's nothing in here stock, I marked them from what they were on the firewall inside on the fuse panel. So if they did go to something, what I did was I cut them off, terminated them so that they weren't any bare wires, and then I marked it, so make sure that if she does go back to stock with this, or they need that for anything, they know exactly where that wire went. I did the same thing. Back up underneath there, I labeled it. I label all the new wires. So yeah. So there's the front end and stuff. I put all brand new components in, all polyurethane stuff. The shocks that I used are completely coilover shocks, and this car didn't have it. So I got these really nice coilover shocks that are completely adjustable, and that made a huge difference for this car, because this car had so much weight in it. It just floated down the road. And so yeah, with the old system, the old shock system and the coil springs, there was no adjustment in it, and this car was sitting way too low, and it was super soft. So with the new coilovers that I put in there, they're racing coilovers, they're adjustments, so you can adjust that. So I was able to raise it up just a little bit, because this thing did drag the ground. So that solved a big problem. I haven't been able to drive it on the road because like I said, the alignment wasn't all that good. But just driving around here in my driveway, that steering is incredible. I can't wait for her to get this thing aligned and get on the road so she can feel it. because she'll be able to cruise down the highways with this new suspension and feel great. I have a very similar suspension in my 66 Nova. Take you on an adventure of that later on, probably another video. I encourage everybody, I was thrilled to be doing this for her. I always go back in my mind, if you've got some skill that you can help somebody, use it. Help somebody out. Don't ask for anything. Do something good. And be creative. I always talk about being creative and then helping other people. I try to do that with all my community neighbors out here, trying to help them with the skills that I do have. Wiring just happens to be one of those skills. I'm not an expert at it, but I've always had to do my own wiring on my cars, so I really learned. And I also I build custom flatbed trailers, so I do wiring on trailers. I do all my neighbors' wiring on their horse trailers and stock trailers and stuff like that. So that was one of the skills I could definitely apply to this. I was able to get her where she could start this thing again and run it. There are still some carburetor issues. It does run cold. She can fix that later on as she starts building up money to make more repairs onto it and do a restoration. So anyway, I'm gonna leave it right there. Hopefully I can catch an interview with her this afternoon, introduce you to her and her mom, get her take on what's going on. Yeah, you can light it up.
What's been?
You gotta get used to it again.
Big smile. Bam. And it took 2 hours to rental like a park here. Oh, a mid-sized car.
Hey. So are you happy?
Yes, this thing's amazing. I'm stoked.
Well, good. All right, so I showed you a couple clips there of the owner coming out and checking out her car. And I didn't know if she was going to take it that day or not, but at least they came out, they checked it all out. She was really happy. She got to test drive it here in the driveway and feel the suspension and everything. So it's been a couple days. I just got a message from them. They made some arrangements with a tow truck company. If I lived in town, I probably just would have drove it to the alignment company, but I am 15 miles from town and I really didn't want to put that new front end without being aligned on the road, just for safety factor, and to just make sure that everything was safe before she actually got on the road with it. So anyway, today they're coming with a tow truck and they're gonna get it loaded up, get it to the alignment place, and then they're gonna make arrangements to get this thing on a car carrier and then back to Virginia, because that's where she's residing now. She's still in the military and she's established home there. So she's gonna have it back with her and her husband, and they're gonna have a great time once they get this thing back home. So I'm really happy about that, and I know she is. So are you happy? So I know she's really happy about that, and that just makes my my journey with the car all that much more better. So anyway, We'll wait for the tow truck.
See the truth, no you don't have to lie to me. Everything to make you free. I can smell the fear, think you made it clear. Yeah. I could be rude, be in the mood, I could be rotten. I could be cool, not like a fool, but never forgotten. Creeping in the dark, waiting for you. You won't like what you see. Yeah, I feel like a monster. And I'm just here to haunt you. I've become your nightmare, slipping in your dreams. I'm the definition of the worst kind of me. Yeah, I feel like a monster. And I'm just here to haunt you. I've become your nightmare, slipping in your dreams. I'm the definition of the worst kind of me. Yeah, I feel like a monster. 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 Yeah, I feel like you can hold me back. Yeah, I'm coming for you. I'm not heated on you. No, I'm just telling you the facts. Oh, these chains can keep me down. Yeah. I can be rude, be in the mood, I can be rotten. I can be cool, man, like a fool, but never forgotten. Creeping in the dark, waiting for you.
All right, well, there you have it. The car's all loaded up and headed down the road, off to the alignment shop, and once that's done, she can start driving it. She's excited because she's visiting in town right now for a couple days, so she's gonna get the car done. Well, they'll either work on it tonight and tomorrow. She should get it back tomorrow because it should be fairly easy alignment. And then while she's in town, she's gonna be a happy camper to cruise it around for a little bit. So I'm happy for her. Good luck to her on her journey. And like always, we'll see you guys on the next video.